Welcome to the Anime Reviewers. I'm Zach.
I'm Matt.
Today we are talking about Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation. This was done by Studio Bind. It is written and directed by Manabu Okamoto. And episode 1 is also is called Jobless Reincarnation.
This show, it reminds me of Saga of the Tiny the Evil in regards to it immediately shows you shows the main character what's his name
We never find out his name in the real world.
Yeah.
Like, when he was alive, we learned his name when he was reincarnated.
Yeah. But yeah, he gets killed in a car accident and sees himself die and then gets reincarnated as a baby. And he's and you find out that he was like a shut-in who has no connection had clearly no
He said he had no social life, no outside communication.
And the way he talks about women is very how if you ever meet people who are just don't they never interacted with women, he has exactly how he's just over sexualizing them as opposed to seeing them as people. And he even makes a comment that's pretty funny about how he's his mother, she's got great boobs and I'm glad I get sucked on it, but I don't feel aroused because I guess it's because it's my mother's.
Yeah.
It's a surprisingly funny line, but he still has all his memories.
Yeah, he still has all memories. Yeah.
That's what's so great about it is he still has all he has these perverted thoughts and in his actions.
And the show's really funny.
Yeah,
and actually, it like you said, the Saga of Tani the Evil, that reference. I think it's a very apt one because it's also very compelling and very interesting. It's enjoyable. You get engaged with the character, and he's pervy and has pervy thoughts, but
he's still very child. Sorry, that's one more thing.
Yeah,
he's very child. With those shut-in people, it's another kind of thing. They're very child, so he really does embody being a toddler so well, because they kind of time skip from him being a baby to him being a toddler.
Yeah, I think he probably time skips from till about he's 5 or so.
I'm thinking he's at 3 or 4, because they
I think by the time he gets the tutor though, he's 5.
Okay.
I think when we start seeing him walking and looking at the book, and then because he mentions a year after he started reading.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking by the time the bulk of the show, this episode takes place, he's about 5. I'm guessing, though, that is, to be clear, I'm guessing he's probably about 5 for the bulk of this episode.
Yeah, because, he jumps to a toddler and finds magic books with magic spells, or on magic, on the subject.
Well, actually, what happens, because it's not so much he stumbles on it, I will give the show actually credit.
Yeah, he goes into the treasure chest, because he's nosing around his parents' bedroom.
Well, yes, I want to talk about what led him to go looking for that. Because when he's younger, when he's first reincarnated, he's trying to figure out where he is, what's going on. Because he thinks, I must be, because
I must be in Europe.
I'm probably in Europe because his mom is white and blonde. His father has long brown hair. He thinks he's probably in Europe, especially with the aesthetic of the building that he's in. But he finds it odd that there's no gas or electricity. He kind of wishes he could play on his even if I'm a baby, I wish I could play on computer games. And he looks out the window and he sees his father practicing sword skills. And he thinks that's weird, and he ends up taking a tumble and bumping his head. And his mom, sets him down on a table and casts a healing spell on him, which is immediately when he's I've been reincarnated in a fantasy world. He figured out he was reincarnated, obviously, because he's a baby. But this is when he figures out that he is somewhere else. Not just somewhere else on Earth, it's I am in a different world.
He makes some very funny comments about that. He's did the fighter marry the cleric?
Yeah, because his mom is practicing, or saying the incantation for the spell. And initially he thinks it's kissing the boo-boo away.
And the superstitious fool.
And the superstitious fool. He's that's where he makes that reference until the spell works. At which point he's sword and sorcery.
My reaction would be,
and that's ultimately what his reaction was. And that's when it doesn't.
He thinks he can actually succeed in this world. It's so perfect.
And that's when it does the time skip, and that's where he starts reading, trying to figure out the books and stuff. And I like the fact that they comment about the fact that even though he has his memories, the parents here are speaking a completely different language. So up until he understands it, anytime they're talking, the subtitles are like a jumble of letters. We are basically taking his perspective when it comes to the language. We don't understand anything that they're saying until he does. That's when it becomes actual words, which I think is actually really cool. At least for the subtitles, I genuinely couldn't tell you about like the audio.
It was Japanese, it was different audio. Which if they made up a language for this show, I applaud that.
Total kudos, but I genuinely like that specifically. I don't know. I just know from the subtitles alone. We understand his thoughts, but until he understands the language in the world that he's in, the subtitles for his parents and those around him are jumbled letters. So that's actually really cool. I enjoyed that. And it's a small little detail that's, yeah, he starts learning about magic and reading about it and then starts practicing it, which is...
When he says he learns how to read because his father would read to him all the time, and that's how he slowly picked it up.
Yeah.
Which I think is really cool, and he's like, because I'm a kid, I must be able to learn. I can learn faster because he's...
Yeah, that's actually, I forgot about that part. He mentions that, which I think is actually really a neat, like, sort of twist on that. Is the fact that he can still gain new information, but at a much quicker pace, because that's how kids are. They learn so much quicker than adults.
They're sponges.
But yeah, so, and then it sort of does a montage of him practicing a spell called Water Ball. And according to the book, he's supposed to be able to, like, it's supposed to generate a water ball that he can shoot. And when he's practicing, he doesn't understand, like, it's actually kind of interesting seeing him figure out the magic system. And thinking it through and what works, what doesn't, and eventually he figures out he can do it without the incantation, and then it's him trying to figure out why is the incantation a thing, why is that prevalent, why is it necessary, what's the purpose of it, and he sort of like, initially he thinks, oh, there's a capstone to magic, and I will say, like, based on the way the show has gone until this point, it's unclear whether magic has a capstone or not, or, because he comes up with the theory of, oh, because I started practicing it at such a young age, because I practice it daily, because he keeps training, he's sort of looking at magic as much like the way you would think a muscle group would, which, yeah, in the beginning, it's low, it's weak if you don't practice, but the more you practice, the more you work out with it, the more you exercise it, the stronger it's going to be. But the other thought he has is, oh, maybe because I'm young and I'm growing, my capstone isn't there yet because he's not an adult. That's where they're determining the capstone. So he's trying to figure that out, but he ultimately that falls to the wayside. Ultimately, what he ends up figuring out, though, is he sort of stumbles across, like, what the purpose of the incantation is. Because he figures out how to make the water ball, like, go somewhere. And it's because the purpose of the incantation is to help you visualize what you're trying to do. And it's basically like a computer program almost. It's the fact that, like, the incantation sets certain things in order. And one of the things that when he was practicing, especially when he's like, when he figures out he can remove the incantation, is he never set the movement speed to the object. So he could create the water all he wanted, but it always just fell down because he didn't input movement speed. And I like how they go in depth about that and how he pieces together the magic system. And it's a reasonable explanation for incantations. And it's an interesting one versus like, oh, say Alakazam because that's what everyone says. And then once he figures it out, and he immediately is like, okay, I got this, let's do intermediate magic, and blows a hole in the house.
Well, yeah, that's like the best part.
It's so funny.
If he stands into a wall and he thinks he's just gonna shoot like this little ball of water out and it's gonna do something cool, and then half the house, like just the whole window, like not just the window, like the whole frame, the wall, just all blows out, and the parents come running in. They're freaking out at first, and then they figure out he went into intermediate magic. And his first reaction is, like any shy, reclusive person is, I'm sorry. Because he knows he's worried.
Well, especially since, like, when his mom asks him, did you read this book? She gets this sort of, like, weird grin on her face, and he's freaked out. And, because part of it is he's immediately, like, seeing that face. He's like, oh, did I do something wrong? Did I screw up? Are they going to, like...
putting a curse on me or something?
She's going to put me in a curse. She's going to put me, like... Am I going to go to some boarding school? Am I going to get locked up? Like, he's running through these horrible thoughts. And he says, I'm sorry. And she's like, and she immediately is ecstatic. And she's like, yeah, the mom wants to hire a magic tutor. And the dad's like, well, we promised if it was a boy, he'd be a swordsman.
Yeah, and then she's like, you always break your promises. And they're like, this isn't about me. And then there's a maid character who was... she makes like a snide comment, just walk out. Why don't you have him in the morning?
Learn magic.
Learn magic in the afternoons. He learns swordsmanship, and then they never follow up or acknowledge her at all. Then there's a really hilarious sex scene immediately after that. No, that's earlier on.
That's earlier on. Yeah.
And you don't see him having sex. You just hear like words they're saying, and it's just so funny. And I just wanted to make mention of that, of how like they show that his parents are deeply in love and very passionate for each other. And that's why that fighting makes that fighting so much more real.
It makes it genuine. Yeah, it makes it feel like it's an actual couple. And then, but what's also really funny, like, it again makes them feel like sort of real people, is they end up hiring the magic tutor, because of course they do. And we get introduced to the tutor, which is Roxy Migordia. And when Roxy's like, okay, who am I teaching? Well, the mother's like, oh, it's our sweet baby boy right here. He's so special. And Roxy, I get the feeling she's going to be the type of character that like has that the quote unquote character defect where she occasionally externalizes her thoughts, because she sort of looks away from the parents. Because of course, it's one of these people that thinks their kid's super special and yada. They don't know.
Yeah, very cynical.
Yeah, she's super cynical about it, and of course the parents, they know the truth. They know.
And they tell her, that we can hear you. And she's lamenting to herself out loud.
And actually, when just before the lamenting, when we're getting introduced to her, because a lot of this takes place like in because the main character's name in this world is Rudius. Most people refer to him as Rudy, though.
And he doesn't figure out his name until he's a toddler, which is pretty great.
Yeah. I mean, it would make sense. He didn't understand the language. When she shows up at the door to be the tutor, because he's like, oh, they're probably going to get some old bearded man who's a retired adventurer who doesn't. And she shows up at the door, and he's like,
forget the beard. She doesn't even look old enough to where her bush is fully grown. I was just like, that is ridiculous. Like, it's a great line and it's so bad, but it's
so funny, but it's so bad. And it's really funny because he immediately follows it up with, she's a lolly, got a scornful face, and what was the third thing? Do you remember?
Like something about her personality, I thought.
And yeah, I forget what it was, but it's a lolly, gloomy face, and I forget what the personality trait was. And immediately, marry me.
I want to marry her.
I want to marry her or something.
Yeah.
It's so bad, but so funny.
Well, and how childish it is too.
That's what makes it funny.
Like how he's in, yes, and that's what I love so much about it, because it's so true to like a kid. Like he was an adult and he never learned how to not be an adult. And so he's having to redo everything, and he still acts like such a. He acts like a child. So fitting for that age. The writer of this is a genius.
Oh yeah, I think this is great, and it's really funny because like when he's being taught how to do water ball, he actually asks he actually makes mention of the fact that like are incantations necessary, because he still doesn't know. Like, because the fact that he can cast magic without an incantation isn't something his parents know about. They just know he casts an intermediate spell. And the tutor is like, of course it's important. And she sort of like blows off the question, like, well, why would you bother asking that? And she shows him water ball, and he starts doing the incantation. And while he's doing it, the wind picks up, and it shows her panties. And he cuts off the incantation to look at them, and because he knows how to do the spell, like it of course shoots off the water ball. Like he never stopped the spell because he wasn't doing it via the incantation. He was just saying the words. And she seems oblivious to what he was doing. She's just like, you cut off the incantation midway. Do you normally shorten it like that? And he's like, normally I just skip it. And that's when she actually is interested in teaching him, which I think which tells me that incantationless magic actually exists.
Well, because that's actually what he says in the book. What it says in the book, and he makes mention of it, is that there are people born with innate powers, and then anyone can learn. Like, it's like almost like anyone can learn how to do like level 3 up to level 3.
Yeah.
But there are people who have an innate magic, like innate, to where they can go beyond that and do like.
Well, that's what I meant by his magic limit, like that level. The book only mentions incantations and magic circles, though, in regards to how to cast stuff.
Yeah.
The book never talked about incantationless spells.
That's true.
So that's when she gets interested, and that tells me that incantationless spells exist.
Oh yeah.
It's just that book didn't cover it, and more than likely, it's a high level skill. It's more than likely not something that you would expect to come across in,
and you can't really teach someone innate skills, so why would you really write about it?
Exactly.
In a book of, like, you don't have a cooking book that just says, oh, just be great at making turkey.
Yeah. The episode ends off with a family dinner that Roxy is invited to, so it can be like a family introduction with her.
And it's a feast.
And it's Rudy's parents are there, the maid is there, and then Roxy is there, and it's a joyful thing, and it's really like it's kind of funny because you see the father with like the bad chicken that he's like tearing into.
Well, he's not just tearing into it; he's like holding it, he's just biting it sideways, like he's not like tearing off the leg and eating. He has the whole chicken and he's eating it.
But while it's going on, we actually get the episode ends back again on Rudy's thoughts. And Rudy talking about the fact that, like, and it's really driving home the point that, like, he's in a new world. He has a new life. He has a new chance to redo it. To not be the shut-in. To not be the recluse. To try and go out there and do things and be a part of the world versus being away from it. And I think that really, like, one is super good. It's a super good ending point. But I also, like, his sort of like pervy nature, like although it's funny, and I can get comedic value out of it, I do hope the fact that like the way this episode ends, like I'm fine if he has the pervy thoughts from time to time. They can be funny.
People have pervy thoughts.
People have pervy thoughts.
That's a character trait, but the fact that I want him to mature.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about, and that's what I'm hoping. What that ending means is he's going to mature. I'm not saying get rid of the pervy thoughts, but like this episode, they're really heavy on him. And it makes sense. He doesn't really understand anything. He's not invested in what he's doing. He's sort of still living that reclusive mindset.
Well, and that's what drew me to this show when I read in the description. The fact that what he does in this episode is he promises to be a better person. I'm like, this is going to be a show about character growth and the development of a person. I mean, I didn't expect him. I mean, I knew he was going to be kind of goofy because they describe him as a virgin. In this episode, they make no mention of that. Yeah. He doesn't say he's a virgin.
Yes, he does. At the very beginning, when he's dying, he said, "I wish I didn't die a virgin." Oh. It's a one-time sentence.
That's why I missed it.
Yeah, it's a one-time sentence when he's like basically when his mind is fading away.
Yeah, but he described I figured it because the description said he was like a virgin, reclusive person.
Yeah,
I knew it had to be about character growth because he made that promise, and it's like. This is like to where Tanya the Evil was about him just exploiting the world and not really changing, even though Tanya the Evil is still an awesome show.
It's an awesome show, but for very different reasons. And for very different character growth reasons.
Yeah.
Because even Tanya has character growth, and they're just different.
Yeah.
Saga of Tanya the Evil is also in a certain way about rebellion. Whereas this is about more acceptance. At least in a very loose term.
I'm betting. I'll bet that overall the theme's probably going to be changed. It's changed.
Oh, I think the primary theme is change. Absolutely, it's going to be change and growth, and I'm excited for where this is going to go. Like I genuinely am. This is another show that, like, personally, I'm probably going to watch. I kind of want to watch week to week, just because it seems like it's going to be funny with a little bit of wholesomeness, with action sprinkled in to occasionally.
Yeah, because there's probably going to be more time skips.
Yeah, I think there's going to be, based on the way the preview for the show looked, I think there's going to be one more.
Yeah, where he becomes another teenager.
Like when he becomes like a teenager, sort of young adult age. I think that's going to be another time skip. But I think what they'll do is probably like another episode or two as a kid. I think that's all for us. Yes.
Yeah, fantastic show. Highly recommended.
Absolutely, watch it. Definitely. Have a good one.
Bye-bye. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
And hit that bell icon for notifications. Also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Links in the description down below.